Hello everyone, welcome to the online Swayam platform. Today we are going to discuss a very important topic under urban governance, solid waste management. How small steps can create a smart future. I am Dr. Jabapriya from the Department of Chemistry, Madras Christian College. Solid waste, it is a huge problem lying before us. And what is this solid waste? It is unwanted solid materials that is generated from residential, industrial and commercial activities in a particular area. And the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, Government of India has given a list of materials under solid waste. Now, we can categorize them as solid, semi-solid domestic waste, sanitary waste, commercial waste, institutional waste, catering and market waste, waste that is removed from surface drains, horticulture waste, agriculture, biomedical waste, and the list goes on. And how do we classify this solid waste? There are two important categories. One is the organic solid waste and the other one is inorganic solid waste. So, organic, now we have food materials at our home. So, when we leave it just like that for 2 or 3 days, what will happen? It will, we get an offensive and an irritating smell. So, that is biodegradation. So, this organic solid waste is biodegradable and they decompose naturally. And when you keep it for a few days unattended, it will emit offensive and irritating smell. This is also known as putrescible waste. Again, it undergoes rapid degradation, and another word for it is biodegradable waste. So, everything is the same, everything comes under organic solid waste. And you have another category, as we already discussed, it is inorganic solid waste. So, what are they? They are solid matter which does not decompose naturally, right. We are using plastic bags every day. So, all those will come under this inorganic solid waste. We also call them as non-putrescible waste, okay, or non-biodegradable solid waste, paper, glass, bottles, okay, fabrics. So, all these will come under inorganic solid waste. And apart from that, we have inert waste, right, the waste that is generated from debris, when where there is a construction work going on, we generate a lot of waste. So, that comes under inert waste. And the next category is very, very important because we are much bothered about it nowadays, that is our e-waste, okay, electrical and electronic waste, and we have a acronym for it, V. So, that is waste generated by electronic and electrical equipment. Okay, so for example, your TV, computer, okay, all your electrical appliances. So, everything will come under e-waste. And the next one is composite waste. So, composite waste, it is just a heterogeneous mix. No, it is just a group of everything, a heterogeneous mix of trash which is composed of different types of materials. So, you can have a waste cloth, we can have a Tetra Pak, we can have a plastic toy. So, everything as a combination you call it as a composite waste. And hazardous waste, so that is again something which we should be very much bothered about, the paints, chemicals, the spray cans, fertilizers, pesticides. So, all these come under hazardous waste. Yet another category is there, that is known as medical waste. Okay, so, that is waste generated by healthcare activities, used needles, used syringes and blood samples. Okay, so, that should have a separate technique for managing and disposing. Okay, so, all these come under hazardous waste. So, now I have a question for you. So, what is V? What is V? V is waste generated from electrical and electronic equipments. Very good. So, where do we generate this solid waste from? So, where is the source? So, we have a range of areas where we generate the source from. Number 1, residential, from our houses we generate solid waste, commercial, institutional, from schools, colleges, okay, and from the construction site. So, where we get lot of debris, right, and from treatment plants, okay, you have lot of effluent water coming out from treatment plants, and you have a lot of waste generating from industry, agricultural waste, biomedical. So, all these are areas where we generate the solid waste from. Okay. Now, what are the effects and problems that this solid waste is going to create? Now, in today's scenario, our urban India is generating around 0.15 million tons. Imagine, it's a massive number, 0.15 million tons. And in 2031, there is a projection that 165 million tons of waste is going to be generated. That's a huge number. So, definitely we have to address this problem very critically and with lot of research. And so, if at all we are not going to dispose this municipal solid waste properly, what are the problems created? Environmental pollution, okay, the soil, land, water, everything is going to get polluted. Outbreaks of vector-borne diseases, the diseases that is caused by rodents, mosquitoes, flies, okay. So, all those are going to cause serious health issues, and apart from that, administrative, economic and social problems because of this solid waste. The whole city is going to get contaminated, okay. And one side, there is a lack of awareness, we should say. The formal sector which is used for cleaning the solid waste, the number is not sufficient. So, they remain low in cities, and another side is the government, the local government, they do not have insufficient fund and low sectoral development, lack of sustainable waste management techniques. We do not have new novel techniques to manage this huge waste that is around us. So, my dear students, we should evolve such techniques, okay. So, what again are the effects of solid waste? Number one, if we are not going to dispose it properly, biodegradable materials undergo decomposition and they produce foul smell. Now, I already told you, if we are going to have food materials just like that unattended, it is going to create a foul smell and lot of insects are going to breed inside it. And the next one is, it will leach, this solid waste will start leaching the toxic metals, and that will affect the characteristics of the soil and water. Hope you can see in the pictures that is shown here how it is affecting the soil and water. And these toxic substances that will percolate into the groundwater and it will start contaminating, and that percolation of that substance, you call it as leachate. So, this leachate is one which contains the toxic material, will slowly penetrate into the soil and the water. So, not only that, when we start burning the solid waste, what will happen? It releases lot of toxic gases like furans, dioxins, polychlorinated biphenyls, and all these gases are harmful to human beings. So, what is the need of the hour? My dear students, the need of the hour is solid waste management. And how do we define it? A purposeful and systematic control of generation. So, where do you generate the solid waste? Right from that place it starts. So, that is from our house. So, where do you generate it? Where do you store it? Where do you collect it? How do you transport it? And how do you separate and segregate it? And what are the processing techniques? Okay, how do you recycle it? How do you recover it? And finally, how do you dispose the solid waste? Everything together in a nutshell, we can say that it is solid waste management. Not only technical people, even religious leaders, they have given their own way of explanation for solid waste management. Jesus Christ, after feeding the 5,000, in Bible we read, gather up the leftover fragments that nothing may be lost. The food should not go waste. And one more religious leader, a world famous religious leader Dalai Lama, he says we are the only species with the power to destroy and the power to protect, right? We, the humans, we have the power to protect and we have the power to destroy. So, definitely my dear students, what are we going to do? We are going to protect this environment from all these toxic substances. And under urban governance, so what is the role of solid waste management? So, solid waste management has a very, very crucial role for a perfect and a well planned city. So, proper waste collection and garbage disposal play a very critical role in environmental sustainability of cities. And you know how the population is growing. Our own Chennai, Namma Chennai, how it grows, all the 4 sides we are growing. So, rapidly growing population and we generate more and more of solid waste. Urban local bodies, they are unable to manage this, the large number of solid waste created effectively. They are not able to manage it. So, what happens? This improper management of solid waste poses risk to the environment and public health. And most of the waste that is generated in the cities, they percolate into the land and water bodies. Now, we spoke about the leachate, hope you remember leachate. Okay, so, this leachate will cause severe soil and water pollution. Our government has a very fine set of rules and regulations. So, only problem arises in the application part. Are we really applying it? So, in the Environmental Protection Act that was enforced in 1986, so that is the rule for solid waste management. It started in 1986 and then came the Municipal Solid Waste Management and Handling Rules, and that came in 2000. Later this MSW 2000 rules is replaced by Solid Waste Management Rules 2016. Again this has many more categories. One is Plastic Waste Management Rules 2016, next is E-Waste Management Rules, Biomedical Waste Management Rules. Okay, so, like this the government has framed lot of rules and policies to manage the solid waste. And this is what you are seeing is the waste management hierarchy. Okay, this is the waste management hierarchy where you can see how important is prevention. So, the first thing that is important here is prevention, and the next one is minimization, and the third one is reuse, and the fourth one recycling, and the last two comes under the least favored, that is energy recovery and disposal. So, the most favored is prevention. So, to prevent the solid waste, and the last or the least favored is the disposal. There are 6 main functional elements of the solid waste management system. Number 1 is the generation. Okay. As you can see in the slide, the generation, where do you generate the solid waste from? Like it may be from your house or it may be from a commercial place. Okay. So, that is the first stage, and then from there how do you handle and how do you store it? Like for example, in our houses we have 2 bins, one is for the biodegradable waste and the other one is for non-biodegradable waste. So, on-site handling and storage, and from there how do we collect? Like we have to go and hand it over to a formal or an informal recycler. So, that is the collection stage, and from there we can have this transfer and transport. So, they transport it to a dump yard. So, that is the next area, and processing. So, either it would be processed, we can use it for energy recovery. So, that is also one segment after collection, and finally, everything comes under one section, that is disposal. So, the ultimate aim is to dispose the solid waste. Okay. So, these are the 6 elements of solid waste management, and as I told you, the first and important step is separation, collection and transportation. So, effective waste separation, collection and transportation involves lot of infrastructure. You need a lot of people and infrastructure to carry out this process, and you need containers for separating and storing waste before it is collected, and you need vehicles. For example, in our roads we have bicycles, we have trucks coming to collect our solid waste, right. So, all these comes under the first stage, that is separation, collection and transportation. And again, in this, collection is very very important, because if it is not collected periodically, even in our area, in our streets, if we do not have that formal recyclers or that truck coming within some 2 or 3 days, the whole area will be littering, and also people will start to dump waste there, and people will start to burn waste there. So, all this causes unnecessary and very serious health problems. Okay, and like littering, the marine littering, local flooding, and even if when people come and see that area, the real estate value will also depreciate. The area's value will come down, and spread of diseases, we already saw about this vector borne diseases, local water and air pollution. So, definitely this stage is very very important, especially your collection stage. And after that, separation. So, separation can be done either at home or by the formal recyclers. So, waste separation segregation can be done before or during waste collection. Definitely this process increases a lot of efficiency in the whole solid waste management process. And who are all involved, who are all the stakeholders? The waste generators, that is the residents, and the waste collectors. Okay. And then we should have a dedicated bin for putting the biodegradable and non biodegradable waste separately. So, here again in the picture you can see how everything is put separately, paper in a separate bin, plastic in a separate bin, metals in a separate bin, and these are all the very common solid waste disposal methods. First one is the landfill. Now, you have a particular area to go and dump your solid waste, and that is a dedicated area to throw your solid waste, that is known as landfill. And the second one is the incineration. Okay, just heating, and we would have seen in streets sometimes all the solid waste they would have burnt. So, that is your incineration. And the third is waste compaction. Compaction is like you pack all the waste, and therefore, the area needed for throwing the waste, or it will be lesser. And the next one is these three things that we see here, everything comes under recycling process, whereas the first three just comes under disposing, whereas these three comes under recycling, and you recover energy out of it. The first one is biogas generation, composting, a very simple method that we can do in our kitchen, backyard, just composting. And second one, you use organisms to do composting, you call it as vermicomposting. So, we will have a small discussion about all these very common disposal methods. Number one, as I told you, is the landfill. So, landfill is a man-made pit. It is a man-made pit where the solid waste can be stacked, compacted and covered before being disposed. This picture you can see the landfills, or landfilling is a process where you can have organized disposal of biodegradable and non-biodegradable waste, and this is also known as dump yard, garbage dump, dumping ground. Like this we have other terms also. Okay. And this is a very old practice, it is not a new one, it is a very old practice for waste disposal. And where we have the largest dumping field in India, any idea? We have it in Deonar, Mumbai. So, there we have the Asia's largest dumping field. Next, I have a question for you. Where do we have the largest dumping site in Chennai? Okay. Any guesses? So, that is your Perungudi. Okay, your Perungudi landfill is the largest landfill in Tamil Nadu. And one problem of all these landfills is, fire on and beneath the dump yard. Anytime when you pass on this dump yards, you can see smoke coming out. So, automatically fire will start catching in that area, but that is a very serious problem to be worried about. And again, another side, this landfill is slowly growing. So, the landfill's rapid growth rate that threatens the residents who are living in and around the landfills. Okay. So, these are some of the drawbacks. One is we decompose this waste into the landfills, and therefore, it produces large amount of methane gas and carbon dioxide, and definitely this methane gas and carbon dioxide contribute for the global warming. Okay. So, because they are all greenhouse gases. So, okay, so the global warming is increase in temperature of the whole Earth's atmosphere. So, that is again a very serious problem. Second is the groundwater contamination. This we discussed, like toxic substances, how it leaches into the soil and water. And next is very toxic chemicals. We do not know what is thrown and which is toxic, which is food waste. So, everything is there in the dump yard. So, we also have a probability for very harmful chemicals like arsenic, antimony, PVC, acid, leads and house cleaning chemicals that will leach into the soil and water. Okay. And what happens on course of time, the rivers which is around the landfills, they also start getting contaminated because of this leachate. Okay. And as we already discussed, fire hazard, it is a very again a problem to be bothered about, because it causes respiratory issues. Okay. When there is long exposure of flames and toxic gases, people around will be very much affected by all kind of respiratory problems. And long decomposing period, this food waste, we do not know where it will go get stuck under the dump yard. So, the natural process of getting decomposed will get delayed. Okay. So, in certain dump yards, it takes many years even for a normal food waste to get decomposed. Okay. So, that is again a problem to be worried of in the case of landfills. Okay. So, yeah, so it takes million years to decompose even biodegradable materials. So, during this time the landfill will emit toxic gases. The next solid waste disposable process, an acceptable process, is incineration. So, this is again a very common solid waste disposable process. So, it is a process of burning waste in big furnace at high temperature. So, okay, so here what we do is convert all the organic materials into ash, flue gases, particles, and ultimately we can produce electricity from all the energy that is liberated. And this is again an acceptable landfill reduction approaches. For some countries like Japan, where the land is scarce, incinerating or thermally treating waste is very common. Again, it has its own advantages and it has its own disadvantages. Energy generation, and how we can produce activated carbon from it, and the external fuel, you do not have to use any fuel to heat the waste. The trash itself is sufficient for burning. Okay. So, all this is coming under advantage, whereas disadvantage, you have a very problems that we have to be much bothered about. One is emission. I already told you it emits lot of gases, PVC, dioxin and furan, and health issues, very serious respiratory and carcinogens are emitted during the process. And air and water pollutants go and leach into the soil and water. And even if everything is ideal, definitely it will emit some amount of flue gases, mercury and lead compounds. And this is again a process where you can compress and consolidate various types of waste. So, this you call it as waste compaction. I hope you can see in the picture like how this waste is compacted, right. So, this will enhance the efficiency of waste collection and disposal process. The next is recycling. So far what we saw is just disposing the waste. So, the next category is recycling. So, from the solid waste we can get either a better material, or we can reuse or we can reduce. So, everything comes under recycling: reduce, reuse and recycle. So, we can reduce the raw materials, we can reduce the pollution, and we can also reduce the post consumer waste. And because of this recycling and recovery, lot of waste, recycling of waste, it conserves energy and it is an environmental safe practice. So, composting is a very simple technique that we can use in our own houses, environmentally sound and beneficial recycling process, where organic material is converted into a manure. Okay, organic or food waste, everything can be converted into a manure, and this happens by decomposition of organic matter by microorganism under controlled conditions. And what is the end product of this? This is known as compost. Okay. So, compost, and simultaneously you get byproducts which are carbon dioxide and water. How do they look like? It is dark in color and it is having a crumbly texture. I hope you would have seen. No, it can be used as a manure for our garden, and it is a very highly rich earthly thing, and it almost looks like a soil, topsoil. And the next one, yeah. So, this is also composting, how biological materials can be converted into useful materials. And this is vermicomposting. Here we again the same process, bioconversion, but here we use earthworms. Okay, so, this earthworms feed the organic waste and they produce more earthworms, and finally, the product what you obtain is known as vermicompost. Earlier what we obtained is compost, what we obtain now is vermicompost. I hope you can see the picture, how the earthworms are biodegrading the solid waste. Okay. So, by vermicomposting of solid organic waste is economically viable, and it is a sustainable waste management technology. Here you can see a picture of the vermicomposting pits. You have pits where you can put your solid waste, organic solid waste, and you can also have your microorganisms or the worms that will help you to compost. And what is the significance of this? This vermicomposting final material what we get, it is rich of nitrogen, potassium and phosphorus. Okay. And compared to the compost, the normal composting process, the manure or the final compost we obtain here will be rich in all these elements, and definitely when you put it in the soil, you get a much richer products. Yeah. And the next recycling process is biogas generation. And how do you obtain it? It is produced by anaerobic digestion. What do you mean by anaerobic digestion? In the absence of oxygen, you are going to degrade, same process, but it is going to happen in the absence of oxygen. So far whatever we did was just in the air or in the atmosphere, it was exposed, but in the case of biogas, we are going to close everything and we are going to cut off oxygen, and that process we finally get biogas. And biogas is a renewable source of non-conventional energy. Okay. And these are the components of biogas: methane, carbon dioxide and some traces of nitrogen. The next material that we are much bothered about is plastics. Every day this plastic is been a part and parcel of it, right. Though the government, Tamil Nadu government has given rules and regulations to ban the plastic, have we eradicated or have we eliminated plastics out of life? Definitely not. So, you can see from this picture, from cradle to coffin, now everything is plastic around us, right. But how it is encroaching the whole earth, and there is a dramatical increase in the consumption of polymers. And what do we do after using all these plastics? We just throw it in the solid waste. Okay. So, definitely a proper sustainable plastic waste management methodology is needed. And here we have a person who says plastic is poor man's friend. So far what we would have heard is we have to ban plastic, but this Padma Shri winner Rajagopalan Vasudevan, so he is a professor, a retired professor, and he says like recycling plastics, using small steps will definitely create a smart future. And this person is known as the plastic man of India, and he has found a new way to reuse this plastic waste and make durable roads. Now you can see in Kerala around 41 lakh kilometers of road has been laid using this plastic waste, and he has been awarded the Padma Shri also. Why do we have to recycle this plastic? Again, to conserve the non-renewable fossil fuels, to reduce the consumption of energy, to reduce the amount of solid waste, okay, which is going to the landfill, to reduce the emission of carbon dioxide and all the harmful gases. And how can we recycle? There are two ways. One is upcycling and the other one is downcycling. So, in the upcycling process, we get a better material. So, after recycling, you get a product which is of greater value than the original material, whereas in downcycling, you get a material after recycling which is of less value than the original material. So, the upcycling, or I will give you an example. For example, you get some wood from a construction debris, and that wood can be used to make furniture. So, that is upcycling, whereas downcycling, you can make tissue papers from notebooks. So, that is downcycling. I hope you understood now. Okay. So, and these are all the different types of plastics. The first one is PET. Have you seen the symbols in your plastic cans which you are using? So, these are all the codes that is there behind your plastic bottle. Any bottle, let it be a medicine bottle, let it be a water bottle, anything that you use, you will be having this code. Have you noticed it? The next time when you take a plastic bottle, make sure what code is that. So, 1 refers to PET, okay. So, you can see some examples here, and 2 refers to high density polyethylene, and 3 refers to vinyl, 4 refers to low density polyethylene, 5 denotes polypropylene. Okay. So, these are all materials that we use in our day to day life, right. PS, polystyrene. Okay. So, this is again one hard type of material, and the last 7 category is other plastics, right. So, other plastics, and now there is one emerging kind of plastics coming, which is known as biodegradable plastics. Okay. Students, hope you would have learnt a lot about solid waste today. So, this day we have learnt about the different methodologies in solid waste, how effectively we can convert this solid waste into usable materials by recycling, okay. And apart from that, how important is this solid waste management, and every step of solid waste management and the people involved, right, the stakeholders who are involved in this process, everyone should be respected. So, definitely my dear students, with this all process, and when all our hands join together, we can definitely make a beautiful city. With small steps, we will create smart future. Thank you.